What we have contained here is everything that you need to take care of a baby Tegu. This is baby Tegu season. If you're watching this video and it is July, early July, this is when baby Tegu start to come around, and so many people ask us, how do I take care of my baby Tegu? First and foremost is understand, please, that depending on where you are in the part of the world that you're in, the humidity levels vary, the temperatures vary. It's going to vary how you take care of them. So I'm going to give you the basics, plus the perspective of us being in South Florida. Setting the cage decorations up in your Tegu cage is completely up to you, depending on what style, what colors, what shapes and sizes you like, but here are the requirements. Number one, a nice hide box. Since Tegus in the wild spend a big part of their time underground, giving them a nice hide box in the cage, that is, obviously you have to be careful if the hide box is big enough for them to get under, small enough for them to feel as though they are hiding. Food dish. What is good about a food dish, especially if you're going to use some kind of canned food? There's a bunch of different kind of canned foods. I don't think there's a substitute for crickets dusted with good vitamins, or some nice turkey mash, vitamin enriched with some minerals. But you can use the packaged diet. It's not a bad thing. Put it on the bowl. Why are you putting it on the bowl? You don't want them to eat the substrate. Now, do they eat the substrate in the wild? Yes, occasionally they do, and they will pass it. But let's avoid all the mishaps possible that can happen by being careful with our captive Tegu. Look at the size of this water bowl. Is this overkill? No. Tegus happen to be excellent swimmers and need high amounts of humidity, so that's why we use a really nice water bowl. Now, one of the things going along those lines of humidity, if you notice, we have two different substrates here. One is a reptile bark, this is a cocoa husk. We like to mix them, keep it deep. Now, your substrate in your Tegu cage should be a good 3 to 4 inches deep, because again, they do like to burrow. But super important, keep your humidity about 60%, even 70% is good. You don't want it soupy because they'll start to get fungus, but you do want it damp. That way they can shed off all their skin, they can stay hydrated. And a good way to know is when you put the substrate in, if you move the substrate out of the way and you look at the bottom of the cage and you're seeing dust instead of a nice dark, rich, moist color, then you know it's too dry. Pour a couple of cups of water in the cage. That'll help them to stay at the proper humidity levels. A branch, super important. They climb up the branch, they go under the light, and now they can thermoregulate themselves. You set up a nice thermal gradients as we spoke about. Some nice decorations, not my favorite, but that's good. Your cricket container, we're reviewing your cricket food, your Tegu diet. We're gonna make another video on feeding your Tegu, so I don't wanna stay there too long. Feeding them is very important. If you don't feed them, they die, obviously. Nice big water bowl. Small shallow feeding dish so they don't eat their substrate. Hide box so they can get out of the light when they want to. Speaking of light, very nice heat lamp for a 20-gallon long. You wanna use a 75-watt. UV lighting, very important because their bones are growing. Vitamin dust to dust the crickets as well as the food. Here's a Fixture multivitamin. And the last thing is where we started first. Please remember, where you live depends on how you set your animal up. If you live in a dry environment, you're gonna have to use more high humidity. If you live in a damper environment like South Florida, like we're in, you can be a little bit less careful on things like that. Be careful how you set them up. Don't ever be afraid to give us a call, especially if you get the animal from us, and we'll help you all that we can. Awesome.